Discover the best-kept secrets from the leading entrepreneurs across the globe. Learn from the greatest minds in business with the MyCoda podcast. Here's your host, Sam Payne.
Hello and welcome to the show. Now, guys, I have an awesome guest on the show today for you. It's Yaro Starak. Now, Yaro blogs at entrepreneursjourney.com, where he's been blogging for many years now. And Yaro, I mean, he started his online entrepreneurial journey, if we can call it that, right in the dot-com boom era of 1998. I mean, when we was talking about this, he was talking about dial-up. I mean, the challenge of just having dial-up and having to know HTML just to build a website, and just completely different challenges that a lot of new entrepreneurs coming out of college and starting their own businesses today just won't understand. Like, dial-up, I mean, for me, guys, and for anyone who's listening, like, dial-up, no one could ring through the house phone when you was on the internet. Okay, so if ever you rang through to the phone, it was like listening to a fax machine. Okay, it was just noise. Okay, and it presented so many challenges. It was slow, ridiculously slow, and it didn't make the internet as accessible as it is today. And although the dot-com boom, it literally boomed in 98 when Yaro started, it's incredible to hear how he has had to adapt over time to all the technological advances along the way, which we've seen in the past 20 years. But what's incredible is Yaro is still at the forefront of this online space. Okay, he's just providing incredible content and value to his followers, and he's helping so many people establish themselves as authorities in this online world. And that's basically what content marketing is for, guys. It's to build an audience, it's to build trust with that audience, it's to promote yourself as an authority within a niche or an industry. And eventually, it's a very good platform for you to sell back solutions to your audience's problems. And Yaro, I mean, if you haven't checked him out so far, guys, I definitely recommend checking out his site, entrepreneurjourney.com, which will be in the show notes below. But guys, just take as much as you can from this interview, because Yaro is genuinely just such an awesome guy, very nice bloke, and just wants to do nothing but help other people, which is just incredible. But 2, very knowledgeable, and 3, provides a ton of value, guys. Okay, so make sure you're listening hard to this interview, guys, and taking exactly what you can from this. And then afterwards, go check out Yaro, go check out all his resources, because he's definitely a person you should be listening to when it comes to content marketing and just getting yourself out there as an authority in any niche or industry. So I'm going to stop talking now, guys. I'm going to leave the intro here, and we're going to get straight into this one. This is the MyCoda podcast with Yaro Starak from entrepreneursjourney.com. What's up, everybody? Sam Payne here, and welcome to the MyCoda podcast. Now, today's guest is Yaro Starak. Yaro is the founder of entrepreneursjourney.com, where he blogs. He has a successful podcast, a huge library of online courses, and is also a coach. Yaro, how are we doing today?
Hey, Sam. Great. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming on today. I mean, I've been a big fan of your work for a while now, actually. I first got introduced to the entrepreneurial world via yourself and Pat Flynn, and a friend recommended both resources. So ever since I've started my journey, I've always tapped into your resources. So really excited to get you on the show. But before we start, just for the guys out there that may not be familiar with you, could you just give us a bit more information about yourself and what it is you do?
Yeah, so I've been an online entrepreneur all of my life, at least all of my adult life anyway. For me, the timing was great because I turned 18 in 1998, which people will remember was the dot-com boom #1. So I fell in love with the internet as a business tool, seeing what was going on there. Plus, it was the first time I actually got access to the internet because I enrolled in a university degree at 18 as well. And I gave me a dial-up modem. So that was my first taste of having regular, reliable internet access. And that led to basically, first of all, exploring and then starting a website. So, back when I was a teenager, I played a card game called Magic the Gathering. So my first ever website was about that card game. And I grew it into a little e-commerce store. I had a trading card forum there. And, as an 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old, that was pretty much my main, it's not a full-time income, but it was my main spending money while I was at university. And it was a great training ground for learning how to, grow a website and start making some money. But ultimately, my goal was to avoid having a full-time job. So I wasn't like the typical person wanting to graduate from university and then get a job. I was hoping to graduate from university and avoid a job. So I started to see the internet as the obvious place to be an entrepreneur for me. It suited my introverted personality. I could sit behind the computer and try and make a living. So after graduating, I threw myself into another company. It was called betteredit.com, and it was an editing service that connected university students, usually coming from an English as a second language background, with university professors and PhD students to provide an academic editing service. So basically essay and thesis editing. And I was the middleman. I built the website, I marketed the service. And it was great. It was a real lifestyle business. Once I got it up and running, I really only did a couple of hours worth of work on it and fulfilled that goal of never getting a job. So it eventually became my full-time income. And it was great, but the only downside, I just really didn't love the world of editing and proofreading. So I kind of didn't want to grow it beyond a certain point. I just lost interest. But I did fortunately get introduced to the world of blogging and internet marketing and email marketing around the mid-2000s when I was running this business, because I was looking at new ways to market it. And that led to starting a blog. So the first blog was actually an editing and proofreading blog for that business, which lasted about 3 months because it's an extremely boring subject in my mind anyway. But it did lead me to discover a love of writing and a love of talking about online entrepreneurship. So after 7 years of being, running a card game website, having an editing company, I had an English school in the offline world that didn't do very well, and a bunch of other websites that sort of started and failed. I actually started an entrepreneurship blog. So it was called Entrepreneur's Journey, meant to be a hobby, just a place to tell stories from my past 7 years. But it actually grew an audience, and I knew if I had an audience, then I could make a living from it. So long story short, from this point forward to right now, I've pretty much been a blogger, a teacher. I do product launches, I set up funnels, and I teach people how to sell digital products and services using the power of blogging and email marketing. And I love it, and I still do it today.
That's awesome. And what I love about your story actually is you've been doing this since, like you say, the internet boomed. I mean, you forget how we've progressed, really, don't you? Because when you mentioned dial-up there, I mean, I remember my first lesson on the internet was if you're on the internet, no one can ring through to the house phone. And
right.
Yeah, that was my first ever lesson. Everything was so slow. So, I mean, how?
You're from the UK, right, Sam?
Yeah.
Now, if I remember right, back in the dial-up era, you guys in the UK, you got charged per minute to use the phone as well, right? So I remember thinking, how on earth do people in the UK use the internet back then? How could you afford it,
Well, and I remember because we had one computer in the household, and I can't remember what it was. It was awful, and I was capped. I had like minutes on the internet, like a couple of nights a week, because I didn't want to run up a bill in the house,
Right.
like, I mean. No one's going to get that. I mean, my son certainly is going to have to suffer that, which is good, which is very good. So,
yeah.
I mean, for you, it must be quite a contrast from starting out. I mean, how difficult was it back then learning this internet and learning how to utilize it? Because now there's so many resources out there, and like even starting a website is quite a simple process now. So how's the contrast been? I mean, how was it back then starting out?
The obvious difference is technical challenges are different. I'm not going to say they're gone. Back then I had to teach myself HTML and how to update a server, things like that, where now, like you said, you can just, install WordPress by clicking a button. You've got a website up and running. But to be fair, for some people, even clicking a button to install WordPress is pretty hard. So it's not necessarily, that much of a difference. Technical challenges were there back then. They're still here today for people getting started. So I don't think there's that much of a difference there. And in terms of starting a business, I'll agree there's certain advantages being early in the sense that back then you could start writing content and you're probably one of the only people writing about that subject. So you got a lot of traffic without working hard for it. Today, you have to be a bit more specific, be very niche focused, and then go out there and find your audience and really have a marketing platform to stand on. You can't just be anyone. You have to be anyone with a story or with an experience you've been through, where back then, simply because you were doing it made you a story. So, that's the main difference I see. But the fundamentals haven't changed. You still have to grow your audience. Email still works. I mean, email was the first thing we used on the internet, and it's still the most powerful marketing tool we have today. Websites are still used to deliver content, educate, entertain, and build a following. So, the fundamentals really, I don't feel have changed that much. It's just some things have become better supported, especially technical things, and there's more people doing it. So on one level, that's good because there's way more people you can serve. So there's way more potential customers. Plus, of course, the other side of the coin, there's just more competition. So you have to be a bit more sophisticated with your marketing. You can't hope to get away with anything and everything just because you're doing it. You have to actually have a strategy in place. And that's actually why I can do what I do. I teach strategy more than anything. And that's what I think is most important to get clear when you're starting a business.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're definitely going to touch on marketing strategies as well later on in the interview. But I mean, you touched there that from the point where you was 18, you wanted to go to university to not get a job. I mean, I think most people go to university not to get a job still, but not in the right sense, So was it entrepreneurship for you, or was it you just didn't want to work for someone else? I mean, have you always wanted to just run your own companies?
I wish I could say it was purely, I just love running a business, but that's not true. For me, it was more avoidance. You know how people have the either I want to avoid something mentality or I want to move towards something mentality. I was definitely more I just want to avoid that waking up at 7 a.m. to go to a job, work for someone else at 8 a.m., have to sit at a desk, be told when my lunch hour is, leave at 5, but everyone else leaves, which is stupid because the traffic is crazy. So you have to deal with that as well. For me, it was like freedom of choice was primary. Like I didn't necessarily want millions and millions of dollars. Like if that happened, great. But the freedom that came from having an independent income stream, and ideally, and this was very relevant to the kind of businesses I focused on, I needed to build a business that was as close to passive income as I could. So real lifestyle business as we talk about it now. I call it a laptop lifestyle. That's the phrase I use, and my company uses that phrase a lot. And that simply means when you build a business, our goal is to fuel a lifestyle as opposed to you're growing a business and you're kind of stuck in it 12 hours a day, which is what I saw a lot of entrepreneurs back then too. So as much as I was trying to avoid a job, I was trying to avoid being that guy who has to go to the restaurant, for 12 hours and look after it, or that, the person. For a good example for me back then was a friend of mine had just started up an internet cafe, which back then was a fairly new thing to do, get a bunch of computers into a building, let kids play games, let, people come and use the internet for like $5 an hour per computer. And for a brief period, I thought about doing it myself, but then I watched what he was doing, and he would spend sometimes 24 hours. He'd sleep at the office just to keep the doors open. And he eventually did make good money, and I think he opened up a second store and so on. But the hours, it definitely wasn't freedom. So I was really keeping my mind in this: how do I get leverage? How do I make money when I'm not working? And the internet seemed great for that because people come to your websites while you're sleeping. You can automate the purchasing process, the delivery of the product process, especially if it's digital. So when I got into digital products and services, I thought this is the holy grail. No shipping, no putting products in the mail back and forth, I actually experienced that with my card game business. I went to the post office every day for like hours. So it was, that was a pain. And that was my goal, was to find smart business models to get leverage, to get time freedom as well as financial freedom. Not necessarily trying to get to a $10 million exit kind of thing, which a lot of entrepreneurs think about more than what they're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. And I mean, I think ultimately it comes down to just having complete control over your life, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah, that's it.
Because I was actually sitting down with one of my mentors, must have been about 6 months ago now, and he we like to outline like my targets, my goals, my 3-month targets, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, what is the ultimate goal for you, Sam? And actually, he broke it down. It's like, all you want is complete control over your life. So if that means you're earning 30 grand a year, but only having to work an hour a day, you've got control because you're not chasing, you're not having to finance something that's out of your hands, or, you know. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are gunning for the Ferraris, and there's nothing wrong with going for that. If that's your driving force, then go for it. Do you know what I mean? But I mean, what point was it for you where you realised, actually, I've nailed it. I've now got control. I've now achieved my goal.
Well, financially, the editing business did it. But like what you just described, I was making about 40 grand in my pocket after paying, everyone out. It made about 100 grand a year plus in revenue, but it paid a salary for me. And I did about 2 hours a week of work just checking in. And that was towards, the end before I sold the business. And financially, that was great. The only downside was I was lonely because I had nothing else to do. And I didn't know anyone else doing what I did. So, and I'm living in Brisbane, Australia. So it's not like a hotbed for internet marketing, just to say. It is better now, but certainly not back then. So I was still missing something, which was the social passion aspect of it. I successfully made money. That was a big goal. It's usually your first goal, and I made that goal. And it wasn't until I started blogging and realizing, what, I really love writing, I really love teaching, I really love being involved with people and educating people. And of course, the internet just growing to the point where you've got meetups, and it's just, I'm no longer this weird outlier guy running the internet business. Now, lots of people do it, so many stories. So it's not weird, and there's plenty of us. We can all be friends. We have conferences every week we could go to. So it's just matured as a thing to do. And that really helped not only me just figuring out blogging and creating a business that actually meets all my needs, financial, time freedom, as well as passion. You have to find a role in your company you enjoy, or you have to find something else in your life you enjoy. If you just want to play the guitar or surf by the beach and that gives you fulfillment, then a passive income business is great for that too. But for me, I still love doing something in my business, and that right now is writing and teaching and podcasting and everything we're talking about here. So it wasn't until I figured out what I call the holy trinity of business: money, freedom, and something you enjoy, some passion aspect, that I actually felt really fulfilled with everything. And that really did require 10 years. I had to get to the point where I was making money from my blog business as well, and seeing the difference between that and an editing business, and seeing the difference between that and an e-commerce card game business. You kind of progress between these projects and see what parts you don't like and what parts you do like. And it wasn't until literally like maybe 2007 when I did my first digital product launch, my first teaching course, that I really go, okay, this is what I like. This is the business model I want to keep doing for the rest of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I'd like to touch on that more now, actually, because I know a lot of the guys listening in, they all want to know how they can, one, market themselves, and two, make money from their blogs, or not from their blogs alone, but from their digital products and everything else we've just been talking about. So we said at the start there that nowadays you have to have a specific marketing strategy in place when you're launching anything or launching your blog or products. So can you just outline for the listeners what a marketing strategy looks like and how they can formulate one for themselves?
Okay, so if we're talking marketing strategy, so not necessarily business strategy, marketing is a slice of your business. That assumes you already have a business model. That's important because when you have a business model, you understand who you service, what their problems are, what their dreams, aspirations, pain points, frustrations, all the emotional feeling aspects of your customer. And then, of course, what you do, your product or your service or both, fit into that person's life and how it can change, how best to speak to them to eventually sell this product and service. You understand the language, you understand the communication you need to do with your audience. When you have that clarity, then you can put your marketing plan into place, because the marketing plan is an extension of how you communicate. And I really keep things very simple with that today. You've got your basic structure for engaging and then having an ongoing dialogue with the person, which is simple: produce content, invite them to join an email list for more targeted information about the same subject, and then build that relationship through more content, trust, and then make an offer for your next level, your product or your service. So that's a basic framework. It really, for me, it's very simple. It's my blog, it's my email list. Every single successful graduate student has this combination in their business as a big part, usually the main machine that makes it work. What you then do is get attention, because obviously just having a blog and just having an email list doesn't mean that people will stumble across you and find you magically. You have to go out there and do some marketing. So because I focus on content, and the people I generally work with are also, big fans of content, whether it's writing or video or podcast, it makes sense to go out into the world and make use of content as your marketing tool as well. So that translates into some simple ideas. If you like to write, getting guest posts on other blogs and websites is a great plan for you. If you like to do video, using a platform like YouTube is a great place to go to, especially if you engage with other people on YouTube, because you need to do some kind of collaborations with them, interview them. They may need to interview you, because that's how you get exposure to new audience. Again, you can't just put videos on YouTube and magic happens. There needs to be some outreach, some marketing as well. Same with audio. If you love audio, you do what we're doing now, or you do your own talk show, you do a podcast. And certainly putting it on iTunes helps. Putting it on, whatever, Stitcher and SoundCloud, all these other platforms can get you some eyeballs. But at the end of the day, it's the exposure when you do outreach. So getting yourself interviewed on someone else's podcast opens your door to new people, just as I'm speaking right now to people who probably possibly never heard of me. So I'm reaching new people. So you pick a channel, and I really believe in going where your strengths are and keeping things simple. So if you're a content writer, you try and focus on just guest posting. If you can do one guest post every week, you're doing a great job to start with. If you're podcasting, do podcasting, but make sure there's something that's also putting the podcast into other people's hands, which is, it could even be press coverage. Like there's some interesting combinations where you might have a crazy podcast and you then go to journalists and say, I have a crazy podcast, right? Or a crazy YouTube channel, something like that. And then there's a group of people who I find are just great at community, and they love not necessarily writing long form content or producing well edited videos or even interviewing people. They might just like dialogue, communication, helping people in communities. And those people are great at social. So usually they go to Facebook and they start a Facebook group or participate in other people's Facebook groups. And that's where they build their exposure, build their authority. And then, of course, there's people who love graphics. And if graphics are your thing, there's two great platforms for that, Instagram and Pinterest. And you can do a lot, again, on those platforms if you interact with other users on those platforms. You have to get the share for share going on Instagram. You have to build a following on Pinterest by interacting and following other people there. So everything requires a combination of releasing your own content and then putting that content somehow in front of other new eyeballs to bring an audience back. So I teach my students to start all the way back at the beginning with that first thing I talked about. Get clear on who you help, how you help them, what you're going to help them do. Then start producing the basic framework, a landing page to get an email list going, a blog to have a place to put your content on, and then start looking at outreach. And usually it's pick one channel. So I'm going to be a great social media person just on Facebook. So I'm going to focus nothing but groups. I'll find 3 groups that have my target audience, and I'm going to go in there, I'm going to help people, and I'm going to build my authority, bring some people back to my own work, grow my list, and start getting my first customer, and away you go. So that's kind of like a basic framework for modern day content marketing, basically.
Well, there's a lot gone into that. I mean, there's a ton of knowledge bombs dropped there for the guys. You can't see me, but I have my pen and paper. I'm scribbling away there, like trying to keep up. But when I speak to people, I mean, I love content marketing. My favourite medium is podcasting, obviously. I love doing this. I love the interaction with other people, getting in with other networks. And one thing that I do this for, I didn't get into podcasting to make money from my podcast initially. It was purely just because I love doing it, and I'm answering the questions that I was asking myself personally. But some people aren't as patient, and a few of my clients when I speak to them about content marketing, they're not willing to play the long game that comes with it. So what I've tried to explain to them is that actually you build such a strong relationship with people that engage with you over a certain period of time. But what, in your experience, is an ideal amount of time to keep just putting out content before you can expect to start asking for something in return?
Well, the ideal result would be tomorrow, right?
Well, absolutely, yeah. I mean,
That
the
doesn't happen
realistic
for
one
most
then.
people. Yeah. How much content's enough is enough. That's always the answer. You put out there what you need, but there's obviously some benchmarks where you should start asking, am I wasting my time here? Am I getting a response? So I think it's important to, and this is really vital, because I have a lot of people who call themselves content marketers, write blog posts, publish a podcast, post on their Facebook, post a picture to Instagram, try and get some regular content going out on all these channels. But the entire time they've done that, never once have they gone out and actually marketed to an external group of people. They've just put stuff out there hoping that people will show up. And that worked 10 years ago. When I started my blog day one, I wrote a blog post. Google sent me traffic because there was no other blog post about that subject. It doesn't work today. You have to go out there and tell your story. Like, this is why I believe the answer to this problem is actually right at the start, and getting clarity on your big idea, your unique story, the angle. This is what marketing is, a unique, compelling angle that tells something special about you or your business or your product, and relates it to what an audience wants. So it's about them as well. So when you get that magic, then the marketing part becomes easier, because people actually want to share your story for you. So they start inviting you, hey, can we get you on your podcast? Like right now, why did you choose to talk to me? Sam's promoting me right now, or getting interviewed for like an article in Huffington Post or Inc. magazine or Mashable or a food magazine, whatever it is your market is, a health magazine. You might be a well-known author / expert, so you get on to something like, I won't go as far as Oprah, but there's plenty of places that have smaller channels on YouTube or with another person's blog. And this happens because you've written a book that had some great experiments that were unique and interesting, and you did some research, and that's what is compelling. And that's what gets you the story on the radio, or the little spot bit on local TV or newspaper, as well as a blog or podcast or a YouTube channel. So you need to go and do that part. So I say to people, if you're not getting results, first of all, how many active marketing steps have you taken that get you in front of other people's audience in the last week? And unfortunately, most people will say no, none, right? So if you have tried, though, and people are saying, no, we're not interested in sharing your story, they're not replying, they're ignoring you, possibly your angle is not good enough, it's not strong enough. The great thing about the online world, though, is often once you get one break, that's your doorway in for everything. So one podcast interview, suddenly everyone will interview you on a podcast, right? Because you can say, oh, I was on, the something show. And then that can break you through. Same with the YouTube channel. Or you can say, oh, I was featured on, TMZ. There was my little 5 minutes of fame, and suddenly that gets you all these radio gigs, all these mainstream TV shows as well. So these doors can open with the exposure points. But in terms of tangible business results, which is what everyone wants, how am I going to get customers? How am I going to get subscribers from doing this stuff, and how long will it take? It really depends on how you get everything right. If you're producing the right content to serve the right people and doing these steps to outreach and get marketing, you should see people hit your content on your blog. You'll see the traffic go up. You'll see some more people opting in. If you've got a compelling pop-up box and a compelling landing page and a compelling header and footer opt-in on your website design, and it's all modern and the headline is brilliant, you're going to start getting some email opt-ins, and it's going to go up. And then this is going to compound. It's going to happen more frequently. And then eventually you're going to get your first sale. So all this stuff, you see signs of it straight away. Like, that's the great thing about this. If you see a little bit of spike in your traffic, a little bit of spike in your email subscribers, you're doing the right thing. Keep doing it, right? It's only a risk is if you have no response at all. But like I said, that's rarely because what I'm saying here doesn't work. I've never heard it not work. It's the person implementing it not doing it. It's I'm too afraid to market. I don't want to go out there and sell myself. I don't think my story's strong enough. I'm not sure if my landing page is good enough, my headline's good enough. I don't think my product's not ready. All these sort of mental mindset issues that stop you from going out there and exposing what you do. So that leads to no results, which leads to more negative thoughts, which leads to giving up. And that's a vicious cycle that I have to work with a lot of my people with, because they're, as you're hearing me talk, there's a lot to this, and it's overwhelming if you try and eat it all at once, right? Like a lot of what we're talking about here comes once you've done everything else. Like this stuff probably feels good if you're a person who's very clear on what you sell and who you sell, and who your target audience is. If you're a coach already, or a speaker, or an author, or a trainer, or you've got a product or a service and it's already selling, and you just want to get more customers, what I'm saying probably sounds a lot more accessible because you get it. You just go, oh, all I need to do is come up with a great angle, then get a bunch of coverage on a bunch of content sites, news sites, publicity, and I'll have all these new people hitting my site, joining my list, and I can sell to them. That makes sense. But if you don't know what to sell and you're not sure how to set up a landing page, all this other stuff that makes it even more complicated. So you have to kind of, eat the elephant one bite at a time. Although I don't know why people want to eat an elephant, but that's how the saying goes. So, little steps, baby steps at the appropriate step in the process for you. And, I'm a big fan of the 80-20 rule, which means you get a lot out of a little. And a big part of that rule is ignoring what doesn't have a big impact. And ignoring is a huge part of this. Like, if you're not ready to do marketing, if you don't know what you sell, focus on customer research. Try and get some time, maybe one-on-one, speaking to people, or try and get a client rather than trying to go launch a whole business. Just get one customer or help one person over the phone or in person with coaching or consulting. Don't go and try and sell ebooks and courses and membership sites and launch a podcast or a YouTube channel or dive into social media if you've never helped anyone, because you should go help one person first to learn about them, to get clarity there. So the clearer you are there, the faster your content marketing will work as well. And even for people who are thinking, I'm not going to do content marketing, I'm going to buy traffic. I'm going to buy Facebook ads, Instagram ads, Google ads, TV ads. That's how you get customers. None of this content business. I think people are seeing that kind of broadcast sort of shotgun approach to advertising doesn't work anymore. You still have to put out some kind of content. For example, most people doing Facebook ads today are leading with blog posts or leading with videos and then putting people onto a list. So they're still using content. They're spending a bit of money to send people to an article or a video, then get them onto an email list. And so you have to still master this craft of building trust through content. And to go right back to your original question, how long does it take to build trust is what you're actually asking me, which is kind of like asking, how long does it take to make a friend? If you can answer that question, you can answer what you've just asked me.
Yeah, I love that. Well, do you know what? You've touched on so many points there, which are actually quite relevant to me at the minute, to be fair. I mean, I've done a couple of tests recently, and I went through a phase of testing like homemade ads with videos in them, then with just blog posts but covering the same content, then doing it in like a small free course, but it would be the same content, it was just structured differently. But the one thing that got the most clicks and the most engagement through any of my ads was actually I got a video production crew in, and I spent a few £100 on a promotional video for like a high performance package I've put together, and that one ad outperformed every single one I'd done before that, like tenfold, literally. And it just highlighted to me that actually it's such a busy time now on social media that I think it just takes that quality content to really resonate with people, right?
Yeah, I think you're touching on a point where one of the methods for differentiation when things get crowded is quality of production. It's not the only method. Like, some people can just get in front of a camera, like a Facebook Live session, and because of the raw power of their effervescent personality, they build this following. But another way is great editing, great branding, great graphics, all that sort of thing, and that's going to continue, as we all know. If we can look back at the old school TV to what TV looks like now to what movies look like now, there's obviously a progression. Thankfully, as you probably experienced, you don't need to spend hundreds of thousands to produce a great commercial, or even tens of thousands like it used to be. It's a couple hundred quid.
About £350, I think.
Right. And that's a lot still for someone getting new into this. But
absolutely, yeah.
Let's say you sell a $1,000 product, you just need one customer to recoup that. So it's easy to justify in some situations.
I mean, so that actually leads me on to my next question, really, because for the guys out there that haven't quite got the budget to spend like £300 on a video, which I can understand because I never used to have that budget, to spend on content for an advert. But what can they do? Like, can they get hold of their old content and just play with headlines, change images? I mean, are there things people can do with content that's already in place without having to go out and create tons of new content? I mean, could it be the case that they just didn't market it properly in the first place, that no one saw it?
Yeah, I think that's the beautiful thing about long form content, or really, content you focus on teaching people how to solve a problem within one experience. If you can deliver a high value experience with one interaction, you don't need 50 blog posts. You need one really good one. A great example for me, my report, which it's called the Blog Profits Blueprint, and I first wrote it in 2007 as a lead-in to my first ever membership site, a training course on blogging. And it's been the single most important part of my business in terms of growing my list, convincing people to buy my course, and building that trust, that friendship we just talked about in one experience. And the reason why is I wrote that, and I'm basically giving away, it's like a book or a short course where I try to give people a complete solution to this problem within 88 pages. So it's not like a 20-hour program like my course is, but it's still pretty comprehensive for what it is. Now, obviously, even that in itself is a lot of work, but it's still just words. And I think, to answer your question, I really believe in the effectiveness of words. So as much as high video quality production matters and great graphics matter, you have powerful words that change people's lives. You can do well without all the bells and whistles. So I would suggest to a person who is tight on budget, has no graphical ability, focus on improving your ability to communicate and sell and engage with words. So better headlines, learn how to actually solve people's problems with your writing. It's not something that people naturally know how to do. There's concepts you need to cover. There's different types of learning modalities you need to incorporate into the content in order to help every type of human being who might be interested in what you're doing. And you can go far with just some really solid blog posts, maybe 5 or 6 that make part of a 2-week course. Like that's what I have for some of my funnels. I have 6 emails, and 3 of them just point to blog posts. So 3 solid blog posts during the first week of an email course, and then some sort of product offer during the second week using 3 more emails. And that's it to sell one of my ebooks. So, you don't need huge campaigns, but each individual touch point, that interaction you get, the chance to engage, if you can use a really powerful piece of content, no, we're not talking 800 words here, we're, talking usually 2,000 plus to really solve a problem, really deal with an issue for people. That's how you make an impact. And for me, it's been my bread and butter. My traffic still comes predominantly from those kinds of blog posts. I call them pillar posts that I've been writing for 10 years now.
Do you know what? One of the first things I done when I got myself into it, and I paid to get in some of these entrepreneurial groups as well. I sort of paid for the paid membership stuff on a few of the forums. And I was just in there for ages, just talking to people, listening to their problems. I wasn't trying to sell anything, but one thing I'd done, which I'd done it kind of on the fly one night because I was just bored. My missus was out and I was sitting there by myself, And someone posted a problem about uploading content to Instagram. Like it was something about automation. So I decided to write a whole blog post and I put a couple of videos in it, and it was very actionable. People could go away and just use it and use that process. And I tagged the one person that put that problem up in the post on that forum and said, I've written this post for you, and if you like it and you think it can benefit anyone else, just share it around. And that was such a powerful way because they felt, it was for them, but they shared that like wildfire. They literally shared that so many times for me. So I just started doing that quite a lot just to get quite a bit of momentum. And initially that brought some good numbers back to my site. It was time consuming and I had to spend a lot of time getting in there. But once I was in there and delivering that value, I mean, people just started coming, it just happened.
What I love about that is it's a principle you can take and can be turned into long-term assets as well. Like, what you did there, people still are stumbling across that post and still reading it and still, learning about you and possibly finding your blog or your website or your podcast and then joining your list. So I really believe in content assets, which means you write a post and it's not just meant to be cool for today or this week. It's meant to show up in a search result in Google and answer a problem 10 years from now. I've got a blog post and it's still the number one in terms of traffic post on my blog about the 80-20 rule. And I wrote that in 2006, the first time I discovered that rule and how I used it in my life. And every month it gets 10,000 visitors to read it. And that's been for 10 years. So it's, it's not the perfect customer for my business, but it's consistent free traffic from work I did 10 years ago. So if you learn how to create good content, you can create these sort of assets that deliver, even if they only bring 5 visitors a day, that really adds up over a course of 2 or 3 years. That can be a lot of new subscribers and new customers. And you multiply that by 10, 20, 30 blog posts, you've actually got the foundation for an entire business if you put in the effort. Like you said, it's not easy. You have to really, care about helping people solve a problem, put in the effort to really detail how to solve it, but it can lead to a customer base. And that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think like 6 months after I put that post out, that person come on board as a personal client for the consultancy services. So actually, yeah, perfect example of how it worked. Yeah, didn't think about it that way. Cool. And do you know what? One post I loved on your site was about the day you spent $5,000 on something you avoided for 10 years. And I thought this was quite a powerful post because this is a problem that a lot of entrepreneurs face where they don't really want to invest in help. They just like to try and figure it out themselves. And I was one of these people, which is why this post really resonated with me. So, could you just go into that and just explain to the listeners how that experience has benefited you?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not a big coaching kind of person. Ironically, even though I coach and teach so much, I spent many, many years not getting coaching or any kind of help other than my own reading and so forth. And it's pretty, you can see the effects. Like, okay, I started in 98. I didn't make a full-time income really for 5 years. And most people, if they said, I'm going to start a business, but I'm not going to make a full-time income for 5 years, they're going to say, oh, I'm not up for that. I need to pay my bills right now, right? And I got away with that because I was 18 when I started. So I can live with my mom for, 18, 19, 20, 21. And then I took a part-time job. So I had a bit of rent money coming in while I was growing my business. And then eventually at 24, maybe it finally is a full-time income. And that was slow. And that was because not only was I not getting coaching, I was doing everything myself, all the technical stuff myself, learning how to do it, implementing it, all the writing myself, all the customer service myself, all the email replies myself, changes to the website, installing software, it's crazy. So I could have advanced my process so much quicker by simply going to someone who then told me stop doing that. Like that's really, I think, what coaching again is more important to figure out what you need to ignore, what you need to stop doing, stop wasting time on what doesn't matter. And that's what really I find is what's wrong for anyone not getting a result right now is you're spending time on the things that don't deliver an outcome you want. You might think it does. For example, maybe you're posting on Instagram every day and you love it. You love graphics, you love artwork, and you're spending time putting up great pictures. But at the end of the day, you have 500 followers and it's been, 100 new followers every 6 months. It's not exactly a rapidly growing channel for your business. So you're doing something wrong. You're spending time in the wrong place. Maybe if you spent half the time putting up pictures as you did going out and meeting new Instagrammers and doing, share for share, like for like sort of things, you'd actually build a following and it would start growing, right? And you need a coach to tell you stuff like that because you're in the middle of doing it thinking, oh, no, this is going to work. People tell me you just keep doing it and eventually it'll grow, right? And if a coach will say no, because you're not doing this one crucial step, So for me, I ironically, I went from spending $0 to suddenly spending $5,000 in 1 year on coaching. And it was at a point where I realized, and this is it, I finally realized what I was doing wrong, which was trying to do everything myself, doing a lot of the wrong things at the wrong time. And for me, hiring a coach, more than the coaching itself, just the attitude change, it made me go, okay, I'm going to listen to this coach. I'm going to follow the training they're providing. I'm going to ask questions on the coaching calls. I'm going to, participate in the forum community or whatever you get with it because I spent $5,000. If I joined a free Facebook group or a free forum, I'm not going to spend my time because I didn't invest any money. I didn't have a cost to participate. So I'm not putting the commitment into it. So I really believe coaching is one part coaching and one part commitment. That's the attitude change you get. And that's what I wrote my article about. It was helping me to accelerate my process, stop making the wrong decisions, more importantly, commit to something. And there's been a few moments in my life where something has happened that made me commit to it, whether I paid money or I got on a business grant program once for a year, which made the business real. You know, my editing company, I was on this grant program, the government was supporting it. I can't just sit at home and play around with ideas. I got to be all in on this company. So, you know, it makes a difference. I think coaching is a great thing to do, especially if you're in a hurry. If you're 18 and you can't afford $5,000, like I couldn't at 18, fair enough, you know, figure it out, at least the basics yourself, but much sooner than I did. Hire help on all levels, coaching, technical support, customer service. That's the best lesson I can give you is hire help as soon as you can.
Yeah, and I'm reading a book at the minute, Chris Ducker's Virtual Freedom book, which is an incredible book actually. And because I've had I'm a nightmare. I've had such bad experiences with overseas help and VAs, and so I thought, well, I'm going to read this book. And I wish I picked that book up like 3 years ago, like literally. So if you haven't got tons of money, grab that book. It's a great resource to help you look at how you can actually outsource and grow your business.
Oh yeah, Chris is great. I love Chris's stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's all we've got time for today. Time has flown by. Before we leave you today, have you got any parting words of wisdom for the listeners of the show?
You know, I'm finding myself answering this question with the same answer, which is, if all of this is sounding over the top of your head, confusing, too much to do, the simple step to take is to help one person. And that to me is the biggest learning experience you can go through to help you start a company. If you're new to this game, if you haven't figured out what you're selling and who you're selling it to, do a step to get in front of a person who could be a client, even if you do it for free. You know, whether it's just some phone calls or some meeting up over coffee to talk to them with the intention of helping them, because you'll learn what their problem is, who they are. You know, are they man, women, middle-aged, family man, family woman? You know, what's their problem? What have they tried to fix it? And then if you can actually help them by going through a process and they end up with a result, they're your first case study. And that's a door opening for marketing, for new clients. It's content. So many good things come from getting this first client. And that to me is, I think, such a simple idea. You just have to help someone. We all can do this. We all can talk to another human being and potentially solve a problem, because as long as you've done one thing that they haven't done, then, and just like you did, you know how to Instagram upload a picture when another person didn't, and you helped them, which led them to become a client 6 months later and paid you money. You know, it's a perfect example. So same thing, go help one person just using whatever tool you have right now, even if it's just writing some emails back and forth, and that'll do wonders for your business.
Well, I'm glad you repeated that for us today, because that's incredible advice. I love that. And Yaro, finally, before we wrap this up, where is the best place for people to find you online, and how can they get in touch with you?
The simple answer is just to Google my name, Yaro, Y-A-R-O. Thankfully, there's not many other Yaros, so if you just do that search, Y-A-R-O, I'll be usually the first result. There's this sling product that's starting to pop up. I have no idea what it is, but my blog will be one or two in the results there. But if you also want the actual step-by-step kind of overview of everything I've been talking in terms of content marketing and selling through a blog and an email list, then go to blogprofitsblueprint.com, and that's a PDF as well as an audio version. You can go through in an hour and a half, the audio version, and that'll give you a pretty solid introduction to the whole concept of what I'm talking about in terms of selling digital products and services online.
Awesome. And guys, like normal, the links for everything will be in the show notes below, so you can check that one out, and I'd thoroughly recommend doing that. Yaro, thank you so much for coming on today. That was an incredible interview, and just dropped tons of knowledge bombs there, not just for the listeners, but for myself too. So thank you for coming on. Thanks for having me, Sam, and good luck yourself with your business and everyone listening in as well. Okay, guys, and there it is. Yaro, firstly, before we go anywhere else, just thank you so much for giving us some of your time today and coming on the show. That was an incredible interview, my friend, and I got so much from that one. So, guys, I hope you got a lot from that too. In fact, I know you would have got a lot from that too, guys, because that was just awesome content. And I could thoroughly recommend hitting Yaro up on his contact page, guys. Links for that are in the show notes below, okay? Also, definitely check out his blog, entrepreneursjourney.com. Guys, I use that blog a lot. There's so much useful content on that site. It is unreal. Why it's some of the stuff that's on there, guys, I've paid good money for content that isn't as good as the stuff that Yaro's got on there for free. And that is genuinely true, guys. So please check that out if you want some help in this area. Also, guys, Yaro touched on the importance of having a business model that works. Okay, we talked about like a marketing strategy, but that's no good without the right business model. And I've actually touched on this, guys, with a free 10-step business foundation course, and the link for that is in the show notes below. It's completely free. Go check that out. It's a 10-step video course with downloadable notes as well. You can download all the PowerPoints and everything else that's in there, and take that step-by-step guide, and that will really help you find and understand your audience, okay? Because if you can get that bit right, guys, then your marketing strategy will be so much easier, because you know exactly who your audience is, where they are, what their problems are, and how you can solve them. Okay, so check that out, guys, my free 10-step business foundation course. Within that as well, guys, there's also a downloadable 42 questions you can ask in business, which asking leading open-ended questions, which is going to help you understand the problems that your target market are having, how you can really and truly help them and get to the root cause of their issues. Also, questions you can ask yourself. So if something doesn't quite go right, you can ask yourself really good, well-structured questions that are going to make you sit back, think, and go, okay, that didn't quite work, we can now go in this direction. That didn't quite work, or if something did work, you can ask yourself, how can you make that better? And those are crucial questions, guys. That also is in the 10-Step Business Foundation course, guys. And then on top of that, I'm also going to link to my how to now content marketing, so you can increase traffic, subscribers, and sales. And that's a 2-part blog series, guys. In the first part, I talk about exactly why you should be content marketing, the perks of it, and then 7 or 8 key points you need to look at when you are approaching content marketing, and you shouldn't get those points wrong. And then that leads into the blog post 2, guys, part 2 of 2, where I talk about how to formulate authority content, how to conduct research. And I think there's about 10,000 words of free content, plus video tutorials and images and examples of good content, bad content, how to record videos, how to record audios. Guys, there's so much in there. And it tells you exactly how you can use content marketing across blog posts, audio, video, and then how to promote that as well, guys, okay? Then off the back of that as well, there's another freebie for you guys, okay? It's a free, I think I've got like 19 step-by-step, short step-by-step videos on how to build your very own blog site. Now, I've used the software and stuff in there, guys. I'm not an affiliate of that software. It's just software that's really easy to use, and it will help you build a professional-looking blog site for less than a couple of $100. But it's a free step-by-step guide. I'm not an affiliate. I don't get any money for that. I'm just promoting a product that I know is easy to use and will help you put together for next to no money a professional blog site that's really going to stand out from everyone else's. So, guys, there's a whole series you can use there to, 1, get your business model in place, and then 2, moving over to content marketing and how you can market that business model to the right people, and then 3, how to build a platform where you can then market that from and promote that from. So there's a whole series there for you to check out, guys, and I would definitely recommend going and checking that out in the show notes below. And that is it. Thank you so much for joining us today, guys. It has been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, and I'll see you next time on the MyCoda podcast.